to start saying I'm banging my head against the wall because Auckland's going back into lockdown.
Very good. Are you sore?
It has been really sore. Yeah, but not so bad in the last 2 days, and I think Amanda's idea of resting was a good one.
Did you have heaps of blood? There's so much head wounds are bloody. Was it a disgusting mess?
It wasn't actually that bad.
Oh, could have been more dramatic, really.
Right, let me see. Copy this. Sorry, and we're just having problems with our...
Yeah, I was listening.
Yeah,
I have to ring off in a bit because I'm on dinner duty and I've got a window right now that I don't have to be responsible, but soon I'll have to be family responsible.
Of course. Wow.
Hey, Square.
Hi, Anne. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm
Been
good,
ages.
thanks. Been ages. Too long.
Ages.
Oh, great.
Are we
terrible?
Did we solve the problem, Simon?
No, it didn't work the second time. A few of us are jumping on Zoom to talk about the announcement of the government this evening about alert levels. You're welcome to join the conversation at this link or watch. Why am I getting an underline? Why am I getting an underline? YouTube. Posted it. The image is terrible, but that's okay. All right, team. Where are you all? There you are. Kia ora koutou. Aroha mai, sorry about that. We were having a bit of trouble getting ourselves live up onto Facebook. In fact, we failed to do that. But here we are. We just decided to have a little bit of a chat post the government announcement. And just in case anybody in the sector wanted to tune in and talk with us. And of course, they can watch it later as well. Kia ora koutou. Kia ora, Nathan.
Got it? Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Do you know, I think you know Bridget, don't you, Nathan? And
yeah, actually, I'm not sure if I met you, Bridget. Have we?
Oh, yeah, I was on one of the,
yes,
watching one of the learning lunches that you were on during lockdown the first time, Nathan.
Awesome.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, back in the dark ages.
Oh, yeah, nice to see you again.
You too, Bridget.
You know Square. You know Square, right?
Yes.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, Square and Rachel. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And Anne, have you met Nathan before? Nathan Gray?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put my camera on.
There you go.
Coming.
And leads Voyager
Awesome.
Advisory. Yeah.
Right.
Which is supporting and insisting arts organisations and other organisations with strategic planning and capacity building. Yeah. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you. Bridget, are you Hurley family with Zosha and Damon?
No.
Oh, okay. You know who they are?
No.
Oh. Okay.
There's not many Hurleys in New Zealand, so you know when people come across the surname, they ask if I'm related, and 9 times out of 10, I'm not.
I get the same thing with Rhoda.
Yeah.
And
I never have that problem with Lee.
Nathan's agreed to say a little karakia for us because it's a bit of a big deal, especially for Square and Rachel and Anne, who are all in Auckland, and of course all your friends and colleagues and everybody else in the wider arts community and other communities in Tamati Makaurau. Kia ora, Nathan.
Yeah, sure. So just before I start, karakia, just want to reach out and give my aroha to all you guys, especially in Auckland, what you're going through, obviously now for the next 12 days as well. So it's one of these kaupapa where we've done it before and we have to do it again. And we've kind of in a situation where as a nation, we've just demonstrated such amazingness as a country when compared to the rest of the world. And just looking at the 21 million official cases outside of our borders at the moment, it's a pretty crazy time out there. So even though we are having this potential second wave, we've really had quite an amazing opportunity to watch what's going on out there and make really informed decisions on what we need to do to keep our freedoms and cherish those freedoms. So yeah, pretty much I'll do a quick karakia just to give you guys strength in particular in Auckland for this time, and just giving each other aroha and empowering each other to get through these times so that we can all bind together like we did so amazingly through March and April and May early this year. So I'll get commenced with that now. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ana te ata kura, e tio, e hoka, e hau ana. Tihei Mauri ora. One thing that has really struck me about this whole experience personally, this last 5 months for me, I've been writing a book on COVID and comparing the New Zealand experience to the US experience in particular. And what's been so mind-blowing is watching how people have dealt with it in such different ways. And we're so lucky to have this culture within this country or this land that we live on at the moment that for the most part seems openly conducive to trying to make something work so that we can have this freedom, have this safety, and have this sort of public health response, which is really the envy of the rest of the world. And I feel so confident that we can do that again because we know what that freedom is like. And a lot of those countries out there have just never really had it since it really kicked off. They may have tried to do it with early openings, but at the end of the day, that I've noticed the mental health of the people overseas in particular has been really quite damaged. And a lot of my friends in America in particular are really starting to feel the heat of this, and it's really affecting their personalities quite dramatically. Whereas in New Zealand, we really have been quite a force for strength and solidity at this time, and really trying to communicate that message to a wider world to say that this can be done. We just have to be disciplined and strong and together on this as much as we possibly can. So I'm again honoured just to hear your guys' experiences and views of what's been happening over the last 5 months and how that's been affecting all you guys and obviously the wider community as well.
What a fascinating book, Nathan. We'll be really interested to see that. My daughters and my wife wanted to watch a program on TV3 or 1, I can't remember what it was, TVNZ I think, and it was called How to Survive the 80s. And it was a bunch of kids who've got the cell phones and all the rest of it now put into 80s conditions for about 10 days. And there was 4 teams of 2, and one was some pair of twins, and there were some people that were couples and not couples and things. And every night they were given the opportunity of having a prize for the whole group or getting their own phones back. Every single time, sorry, spoiler alerts, they got the prize for the whole group. The people that were losing, they were going last, and they came up to second to last, and they went, oh, we don't feel good about that anymore. We actually felt like our loser spot was the right one for us. And then right at the end, when the big prize was given out, there was a trip to Christchurch to watch Simple Minds and for 2 plus 6 friends. And the winners automatically took the others. And if you just watch this thing, Amanda said it, that she said, I think that's why we did lockdown so beautifully, because here were these kids, these young people, I can call them kids now because I'm almost 50, in a competitive environment, loving each other and being okay with who they were, And I had a look at an interesting job description the other day for a job at MFAT, which is it's changing scope, and it's about exporting New Zealand to the world, and a lot of the focus is on culture, and the scope is now changing to include digital, of course. But they're trying to build on this idea that just through Jacinda and the impact that we're having by it being a country that's done so well with COVID, that we've got things to share. So Nathan, do you think, thinking about your experiences, and you would have too, have lots of experiences of people in the Northern Hemisphere as well, are there things about our culture that perhaps we can share with the world and bring about a bit of global change? What do you think?
For me personally, I think having a population of 5 million to control within New Zealand's borders is kind of that best size number of people, where there's still enough going on to make it a really exciting, dynamic part of the world to live in, but at the same time controllable in terms of the masses, and if you want one cultural direction to take, it's possible to achieve. Whereas in America, you've got 330 million people, and it's almost at this current stage in their country's evolution almost impossible to get one voice and one direction, because it's such a polarized environment there at the moment. So it's almost impossible to achieve that, and obviously the current leadership there hasn't been able to galvanize the people in a way that is necessary to give a level of a good, healthy public response. And everywhere else around the world that I'm noticing that the populations are so big, or it's so disparate, and there's no ability to socially distance that at the end of the day, they kind of have to let the virus just run its course, because there's no really way of controlling it like what we can do with our 5 million. We've got the ability and the means to contact trace and try and work through the community to get the messaging out there, and people are listening to work out what to do, when to do, to try and get a hold of it, if like we're experiencing this in this current cluster, to stamp it out as fast as possible, which is virtually impossible in the US when you've got 60, 70,000 cases a day, and trying to contact trace 1,000 people around each one case. It's basically physically and mentally impossible. So we have that opportunity, and we have that buy-in, but it's still a really massive undertaking, and we really have to honour what we've done as a country to achieve that, because it's still hugely difficult, especially at the beginning when we were ranked as a country, I think 35th in the world for pandemic preparedness. We're very unprepared compared to the US and the UK, which are first and second in the world. But our political response has been and scientific response in particular, has been so exemplary. We've managed to pick up and run with what we had, and be pretty much in the top of the game. So it's one of these things where we're so lucky, and we're seen as from America now, we're seen as a beacon to how to try, and this is possible to get through it, even if we are like this sort of island that's a nature reserve, like a bird reserve type sort of situation. You the one place that can keep that species alive, if it were birds, but we're kind of in that situation. But at the end of the day, it's like if we can't get it right, then everyone else there totally loses hope. And that's what, and I've really picked it up from my wife's brother. He's in Michigan and facing all that, and it's been a lot of our friends and their family are starting to die and stuff now. So it's been quite full on, but we are a guide to them that we can get out of this. So I think we should really try and hold that status and hold that mana, and move forward with that sense of responsibility and of galvanizing together and cracking it again for the second.
Yeah. How are you going, Tamaki? Rach, Square, Anna, sorry.
I guess I'll just chip in there. So I've been in New Zealand for 25 years, and my whole family is in North America or Spain. So two pretty hard hit countries. There's something about the mindset of New Zealanders that really does look after one another. And I don't, can trace it back to kind of the founding families that came here, and for whatever reasons, whether it was on a waka from an island in the Pacific or from the UK, they left something that was intolerable to come here. And so there was huge investment in making it work here, and having to look after one another as pioneers to do it. America's mindset is much more about don't tread on me. Very individual, and that's, there's some nobility in that and some huge frustration. So there's a definite mindset. What I'm seeing from my family, my parents' generation, are that they've been forced to age very quickly, because they're in their mid 70s or early 80s, and all of them quite vital, except they can't do anything now. So I'm noticing that their world is getting smaller and smaller. And they're behaving like they're 90-year-olds in a retirement home because that's what their daily life looks like right now. And that's very sad. The numbers that are not getting reported out of the States, and we may have it here too, but obviously on a smaller scale, are the COVID-related deaths that aren't directly from COVID-19. So we have a family friend who was not able to get an ambulance and therefore died from heart failure. My stepmother is very poorly. She needs to have a procedure and they can't book it in, and she probably won't survive because of that. So I think the tail of this thing is going to be bigger than we can anticipate. So do I think that New Zealand, to answer Simon's question, has a responsibility? Absolutely. We are a tiny little dot, and you know, this Shangri-La kind of fantasy land that the rest of the world can look at with envy. However, not necessarily with the same credibility, because they say, oh, you've got it easy because you're an island, nobody can get to them. So, you know, we don't have to dispel that, that's true, but we do need, I think, to just jolly get it right, because if we can't do it, then no one can. And I think that's really the message that we can be putting out there, is we do it hard. What did the Prime Minister say? Hard and strong, or hard and fast, or whatever.
Go early, go hard.
Yeah, so we pay a big price, much bigger than, you know, other countries have done. They're quasi like lockdown, but we do have to get it right for everybody. Yeah.
You up for that, Rach?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's interesting. You talk about the small population, Nathan. I struggle looking at Australia and the fact that they've treated each state like that, yet they haven't been able to actually do it correctly. Interestingly, you know, popped up in my emails the other day, early booking tickets for Hamilton the musical, which I'm a huge in Sydney for March next year. I'm like, we won't be able to go. You know, Australia's not managing the way we are, and they've got it state by state. For me, I've friends and family in Europe, and you're just watching the ups and downs there. It still is today, though, that whole days of, again, isolation, no people, no gym, no socialing. I've got a spectrum child who is just a mess already. You know, so it's those that was that, but hearing this conversation, and particularly from you, Anne, about, yes, we're actually okay, you know, that brings that positiveness. It's just still that eerie feeling, I think, around what's going on. And I've moved house in the last week as well. So actually in the last 2 days, I've been actually able to clean and unpack. Yeah, just an uncertainty of, again, who am I? What do we do each day? What's the point in waking up? What's the point in doing something? What's, you know, let's just watch TV, or let's just wait till it's time to cook dinner because that's the only thing that seems to have any necessity at the moment. I'm just really glad that the rest of New Zealand has stayed out of it through, because I think that would have had a huge, a completely different impact on our industry in particular.
Yeah, but Square, with a limit of, we're still, rest of New Zealand's still a limit of 100, isn't it? And it has to be managed. And does that mean cancelling gigs?
Yeah, we've had to, well, supposed to have a gig in an hour in Christchurch, not happening. And we've had to essentially make some pretty quick decisions about some shows and tours in September. Modern Māori Quartet's got a 2-week season down at Court Theatre at the end of September, and that's at risk as well. Just had a good production meeting earlier today with the team to sort of make some contingency plans, I guess. But I think for me, you know, it's great to hear everyone's comments, because the startling thing for me over the last few days has been how much I myself have been lulled into this sense of security. I think the temptation is to say that it is a false sense of security, but actually I don't think it's a false sense of security. We were reasonably secure during those 102 days. So certainly we have been in the later part of that period anyway. But if anything, this proves and evidences the fact that it is extremely volatile, and that that resilience and the ability to pivot on our toes really needs to be there. And it's going to affect some people more than others, of course. And the thing is, as much as I'm stressing about and concerned about the fact that I've got to pull shows or reshuffle tours and stuff like that, one forgets also that people are dying. And there's a whole gravity to this that is beyond what is essentially entertainment for the masses. So it's kind of put things weirdly back into perspective. I'm lucky that over this last few months we've kind of been able to slowly grow a bit more of a team, and certainly have had to adopt and learn new ways of working together. And I think if anything, it's going to make us stronger going into the future. But I feel for those of us who have family or friends and loved ones who are either suffering or have recently passed. We just lost a family friend who kind of was a bit of a grandfather figure to me growing up as well, just this week, and he's there in Malaysia. There's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, quite an interesting sort of scenario to be in, and I think sort of thanking our lucky stars that, as I said before, really thankful that we're here in New Zealand, because it would be in such a different condition if we were anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Was it a shock to you, Bridget? Were you feeling, what was your word, Square? Was it
a sense of security?
Sense of security, yeah.
Yes and no. I just can't help but think back to a week ago, Simon and Square, when we were all in Palmerston North.
Oh.
Obviously, Square had a couple of sold-out shows with Tofiga, and then Bonnie and I went on to the opening night of Sister Act at the Regent on Broadway in Palmerston North. And while I was at both performances, thank you, Square, for inviting us along. I think I can speak for Simon and I and say, we shed tears of laughter. I on several occasions, I sat there just feeling very, very grateful and somewhat humbled that we were able to do that, to be in a theatre and watch a performance in amongst 100, 200, 300 other people. And even when Bonnie and I were at Sister Act, we sat in our seats afterwards while we waited for everyone to leave. And, I was just, this immense feeling of thankfulness that we were able to do this sort of thing again. And yet fast forward a few days and it's over. Because Sister Act, I think, got through a few performances, but I think it's effectively the end of the run now, because
they cancelled the last three. Yeah, they cancelled the last three.
And a friend of mine who's working on the production in sound said this could actually sink the theatre company. This time they had to be bailed out when they had to postpone the first lot of performances, and this could be the final nail in the coffin. So it's very sobering. But I think the whole time I was aware, yes, we're very lucky and how great we can go to gigs and the theatre and performances again. But I tried not to become complacent and take things for granted, because I knew, in the blink of an eye, it could all be over. And unfortunately, we've had to hit pause again. But my heart really goes out to, the artists and musicians and theatre companies and so on who've, had big plans, and, everything's come to a grinding halt. And I hope that pause is a brief one and that it doesn't go on for as long as the first lockdown earlier this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Last week, Basement was supposed to reopen. There was New Zealand Dance Company, Fringe in Nelson. APO concert, wasn't there? And
Penny Ashford was touring right around New Zealand for a few months. She's just put to halt.
yeah, it's really scary, Bridget, to hear you saying that there's a possibility that a whole company might fall over because of a second shock. I really do hope that story can be told to through whatever channels to potentially get some financial support for that. I mean, I think the government wants to know, don't they? Yeah, it's terrible, and it's awful having the borders closed and being isolated. But there was that bonus, that sense that there was going to be this golden age of New Zealand work on stage and all around us, and then this constant reports of sold out events and this sort of celebration about being able to be together and doing that not only with the arts but also with sport as well. And so we were, like you say, Square, in this false sense of security of this is what it's going to be like for a couple of years, a year and a half or whatever, this great intensity around New Zealand content. Maybe it's going to be that, but it's going to be that with these little blips. And we just have to get really, really good as a nation at getting that app. I mean, I had the app, but then I ran out of room on my phone, so I took it away. And I've got it back now. We all have to we have to go that extra mile. And what did you say, Nathan? Be role models for the world.
Yeah, pretty much if we can. I think the reality of what we're going through, I mean, the second time round now is a bit of a reality check, because it's, I feel like we were so lucky. We were probably getting quite complacent to, to what we had, and because it was so raging out there overseas and ongoingly, that they may have had one sort of month, 2 months of a quietening of a period, but really their second waves are immense. And it's just that one of those things where, it's like we were going to be the one place that, or there was maybe a few other places that were going to just be living this life domestically, but making those sacrifices for this golden age in New Zealand. And what the reality is actually, no, this virus is it's holds no barriers. It does whatever it wants. It doesn't care what your political affiliation is, what your culture is, whatever your thinking is. It's just neutral, but it's totally ruthless. And if it sees an opportunity and it sees a host to spring on, then it will take that opportunity. And so this is probably in some ways, it sounds terrible, but of a blessing in disguise for us, because it's a reawakening to what's required if we want to get on top of this menace, this invisible menace, because that's exactly what it is. And I was fortunate last week to be chatting with Helen Clark, and she's running the response for the world for just the overview of how we as a species have reacted to the virus and what we can learn for future pandemics. And her outlook I thought was just masterful, because she really doesn't want to be playing any blame game at all with the response, with the report they want to write. They just want to get as many insights as possible so we can respond better as a species to the next confront attacks that are going to be occurring inevitably this century. So it was really amazing having people like her with her skill and her brilliance and intelligence in those top roles globally and really influencing it in that way, which I see as very much a New Zealand approach, because there is that kind of togetherness, whanaungatanga, and working with each other despite the competitiveness and the craziness and the volatility of the world. So having members of the community that we can relate to and we've been brought up with out there influencing this process is really mind-blowing. So again, we've got to hold this mana with us going through this experience, because it's been mind-blowingly amazing what we've managed to achieve through Jacinda's work. So and us binding together. So just be strong through this, because it's so important. It's so the world really needs it. we need it and they need it too. We've got to continue to be that light. I have no doubt that that's going to be our ongoing role in the next 2 years or whatever it takes to get a vaccine and spread out to the rest of the world, if that even works. So that's the reality.
I think what's really interesting, Nathan, as well, that we should look at this in Square. We have had a wake-up call here in New Zealand, and so how we go forward in booking our event and doing contingency plans we have to go through. And having contingency plans that are around the fact that we could get locked up for 2 days at any point in time. So, we need to think about whatever we're doing. I'm trying to book shows for the next years, thinking that parts that we have to look and say, what happens? What's worst case scenario? What's risk management if all of a sudden the day we're opening, we go into 14 days? What happens? How does the venue help us? What's the support we need from the government? What's the support from funders that we need? And actually start putting that out there and say, this is the only way New Zealand can put on events anymore. If there is something there, should we go into that 14 days that allows the companies not to fold?
Yeah. That's the way we have to think, isn't it?
Yeah. And Square's doing that right now. He's right in that current, in that situation. Yeah.
What got any tips, Square?
Yeah.
Don't panic.
Don't panic. Be nice.
No tips. If I had tips, it would be a very different scenario. I think it is just kind of, just try your best and seriously don't panic, because if you do, it's going to make things worse. So
yeah, and I there was a lot of support given the first time, wasn't we? Had Save Our Venues and all of those boosted campaigns, and the Arts Foundation raised $100,000 and matched it on boosted. Maybe this period of time won't feel as long or as uncertain. We don't know for sure, do we yet? But it might be that there is a second wave of organisations that come up and say, hey, I think we need some help. I was having a chat to a cinema, an independent cinema, and they were trying to redo their business plan and think about, and I said, have you actually talked to other cinemas around Aotearoa, and are they in similar situation to you? And maybe actually we should be having a Save Our Cinema drive as well, so maybe we should keep our radar out for people who perhaps didn't go that far the first time round, have struggled on, and now are really in trouble and need a bit of that aroha, like the venues got. And hopefully San Fran and Whammy and those teams can go through essentially a 2-week period okay this time, and let's hope, let's really hope that it really is only 2 weeks.
What you say about the cinemas, Simon's interesting, because there was a story on Stuff today about the film or the live action version of Mulan going straight to Disney Plus, and how cinemas in New Zealand and I guess around the world were counting on that big release to bring people into the cinemas, because a lot of the movie releases have been pushed back, like your James Bonds and the new Marvel films and so on, because of COVID. I think some of the independent cinemas around the country, and perhaps some of the chains as well, have been trying to be innovative in terms of what they're screening, like pulling out the classic movies. And the cinema in Wanganui this evening, case in point, is showing Casablanca as a classic film, the first of the proper classic films that they're showing. But they've been doing things like Mean Girls and Labyrinth and Dirty Dancing and, having dress-ups and so on. But, have these independent cinemas been overlooked in the first round, where our focus was very much on the artists and venues, but this is another type of venue that also needs support, and we're feeling the crunch, second time around.
quite possibly. And some of the more business related things like the network of teaching facilities, the network of dance classes, the network of circus, things like that. I think we haven't heard those stories yet, and maybe we might hear some of those now. Yeah. Anybody else got any more comments before we go off and have our dinner? Go back to whānau.
I've got, sorry, don't mean to monopolise. Just from somebody who's in a level 2 region at the moment, it feels odd. It feels strange not to be in the same situation as Tamaki Makaurau. I have a great deal of empathy. I just want to give everybody a hug. And it just feels weird that we're not quite all in the same boat this time, which in one way is a good thing. My heart goes out to everybody, and if there's anything I can do to help, just give me a yell.
Kia ora.
I share a bit of a quick story. So I was talking to one of our collaborators. Her name is Eleanor, and she is Kiwi, a toy grad, currently unfortunately stuck in Sydney because she can't get home to Macau, where she lives and works. We heard through our Chinese collaborator, Lynn, a few days ago that there's a lot of pressure from the Chinese government for Macau to open again, and so casinos and shows are starting up again. But unfortunately, she can't get home because apparently Macau's enacted this rule where if you're a foreigner, unless your country or the location you're coming from has been COVID-free for 130 days, you can't go over there. So what she's gonna have to do is she's got full apartment and life and work and everything. Her husband and herself. Husband's Australian from Sydney. So what they're gonna have to do is actually pack up their apartment and look for new jobs in Sydney while they try and figure out what to do. So how unceremoniously kicked out of their home. Poor thing. At least she's with family and stuff in Sydney. But the thing is, for everyone, Eleanor out there, there's so many others who have loved ones and family who are stuck, and unable to go where they need to be or some such. It's pretty mad. One of the nice things, I guess, one of the nicer things is, given how everyone's kind of, stuck where they are, we've just been able to keep in touch with our collaborators from around the different countries, and to get sort of different insights into their local territories and local markets has been really, really interesting. Hearing how South Korea is still full steam ahead putting on a show, a production of Cats. They're not really even properly social distancing in theaters, but apparently it's just it's fine. I don't know. And it's just unusual but interesting. I saw India is now allowed to fly to Germany and a few other territories a few days ago, which is quite mad, really. I mean, we're asking for trouble, surely, and then it doesn't help that Putin comes out and says that they've got now the world's first workable vaccine, which I don't know, man.
Good luck with that.
High risk.
Yeah. So I guess it's interesting to kind of, because we're obviously, being in New Zealand, very consumed by everything that's domestic, but and kind of forgetting that the world out there is suffering a lot more than we are. So
I'm going to sign off, but I want to share with you all just the most amazing view of he's done now. My husband just walked in wearing a mask, pulling beer and wine and salami out of his pockets. So I think it's time. That's a cue for me to go.
Hey, Square.
Hey, Gordy.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's great to see you.
You too. Hey, you want to buy a new canoe? They're going cheap.
Great plug,
Go,
mate.
guys, but happy weekend, and Yeah, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Do it properly.
Yeah.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
Ka kite. Any last words, Rach?
No, I think I'm just, it's kind of tough with the fact that Rayhana's moving to Abu Dhabi and within that 12 days, and yeah, my son's not going to be able to say goodbye to his dad. I think that's really the biggest thing that I'm going to have to deal with over the next little while, and it's, yeah, and the fact that they are given 2 months to come back every year, but they're going to have to be able to afford $3,000 to quarantine if they do that. So it's those things that are dynamic, that are really a little bit tough at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's nice to speak to you all, I think, and we'll just work through that. Yeah.
That's right. We have to work through it, eh? So everyone needs to keep in touch with each other and support each other, and eventually give each other big hugs in 12 days or less, maybe even. Let's hope for the best, eh? Yeah. Any last words, Nate?
Yeah, I suppose in my experience, like normally I'd be back in the US now with my family, and we sort of, in some ways, we just feel really lucky that we can teach our courses online. In particular, my wife, that she can still keep her job at Michigan State University with her courses, because otherwise we would be forced to be going back. And my fear is that if you go out now, it's pretty hard to get back into New Zealand. It'd be my major fear that we don't know what the second wave is going to do to the sense of the border and the quarantine and those processes. But even still, it's maximum 7,000 people coming in it's limited, you know, and so you make that very strong choice. If you're leaving, there's not 100% guarantee that it's like you're going to another chair on musical chairs, but there's no guarantee the music's going to allow you to come back again. So so in some ways I feel so lucky that we're in this chair here in New Zealand and just watching what's going on from our Pacific size mode, because at least we get a chance to sit back and deal with our domestic situation, but get a gauge of what's going on out there. And make decisions based on that. That's what I feel is probably our greatest luck. So for me and my family, it's we're just so happy and so relieved to be here, even though my wife can't be with her family, and we just have to watch on from a distance and see how it unfolds for them. So that's kind of our situation at the moment, but feel very lucky for that.
Brave, lucky, some real tough stuff to go through. Aroha nui, everybody. Ka kite.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Totally. And Simon, I'll do a quick karakia just to finish off so we can go off safely to our next event, well, our next challenges and different types of adventures. But just finish off with a quick karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tau ato a tātou ariki, a ihu karaiti, me te aroa o te atua, me te whiwhitanga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake ake, amene.
Amen.
Stay safe, everyone. Yeah, and aroha nui to you all.
Aroha nui.
Yeah.